One, two, one, two. All right, let's roll.
Welcome. You're listening to the Saddle Up Podcast,
where we discuss everything related to UTRGV athletics, past or present. We'll catch up with old teammates, friends, and take you down memory lane
with exclusive interviews.
This is the Saddle Up Podcast,
the voice of your covered walkway streets. So dope.
This is gonna be awesome.
Stay tuned for new episodes every week.
From Bronx Village to the Fieldhouse,
we'll cover it all.
Hell yeah, dude. Carpe diem.
So saddle up and let's go.
Let's go. Saddle up, partner.
Thank you for joining us for another week's episode of Saddle Up Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Matt Palmquist, and allow me to introduce my other co-host because he always gives me shit about not introducing him. G Garza, ladies and gentlemen. G, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here again. And
yeah, but most importantly is the guest that we have on today.
Of course.
I'm excited about our guest, man. Has so much history, so many things to talk about. Pan American and all the things that he's done for Pan American, UTPA, and we're excited, man. And thank you so much for that humble introduction.
Eladio, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited about this. I'm excited just to chat with you guys. And next time we'll have to meet somewhere and have a couple of beers and do this.
We could go to the Giddy Up or Baloo's. We'll get
Baloo's,
into that later.
There you go. We'll get into that later.
So Eladio, for those of you, for the audience members who don't know exactly, I mean, G and I have known you since, 96, 97, right? We were all in school together. Yeah. But for those, the audience that don't know who you are, give them a little bit of what you did, why you were around the program. Like, why do we know you? Tell us who you are.
So I'm from Harlingen, born and raised, and still here. But I arrived at Pan Am actually in 1998. And Matt, I think, G, I don't know if you're still there.
No,
Matt, you were
left. That was the last year that I played for Delray Brooks. Delray's first year was my last year.
Mm-hmm. And so my first year there was the fall of 1998. And so I was like a fourth year freshman. And Matt was still playing.
I was the man. I mean, let's just put it. I was the man. Go ahead and say it, Eladio.
So Matt was the man. Matt was the man on campus, the big man on campus. No, but I went to Pan Am. I'll be honest with you. I went to Pan Am not knowing what I wanted to study. And a friend of mine worked at the school newspaper, the Pan American, and he was from Harlingen. And we were having the conversation one night. He said, "Hey, you want to come write for the paper?" I said, "Sure, yeah." He goes, "Go cover a basketball game for us." So my first assignment was a story on the resurgence of fans going to games. There was like a peak or an increase in fans turning out to Bronx games. So I went out. I think I spoke to some of the players. Lalo was still on the team. I spoke to some of the players, and I spoke to Coach Brooks. I think he was still on there. Yeah, he was. I spoke to Coach and, kind of did a story about, why are fans coming out. It was weird because I hadn't been trained on how to interview. So I'm just like, why are fans coming out?
Don't worry about it. Neither have we, Eladio.
And so I put a story together. I wrote it. They edited it, and they coached me up. And I remember the night before the newspaper. I don't know if you guys remember, the Pan American used to run on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and this article was going to run on Tuesday. And I remember the night before on a Monday, I was back in my apartment. I lived at the Palms, there catty corner to the campus, and I told my roommate Juan, who now he's from Harlingen. He now lives in Germany, and I remember to him, I said, "Bro, I'm scared, man. I'm nervous. What if it's a shitty story? Like everybody's gonna make fun of me. Like you're putting yourself out there, right? I wrote for the yearbook in high school, but for just like a semester."
Eladio, we can relate. We can relate.
And I remember I went to go pick up the story, the newspaper. We read it. I'm like, all right, it sounds decent. And people were like, hey, good story, good story. I'm like, all right, this is cool. And my next assignment was, they go, okay, go cover a basketball game. So the first basketball game I covered at Pan Am was against Oral Roberts University. Matt, I don't know if you remember, it was like a double overtime. I mean,
remember.
you played a lot, but it was a home game. I think it was a Saturday. And it was a double overtime game, double or triple. And it was like, and I'm like, man, like, how am I going to have all these notes? Like, what am I
remember. I remember. You can look it up. I had 14 points, 17 rebounds. I know that game. For one day, I led the NCAA in rebounds.
And so I wrote the story, turned it in. My editors are like, hey, this is pretty good. I never written, I've never interviewed, but I've been around sports my whole life, right? Yeah. So I knew what was going on. I knew the key moments in the game when things turn around when this. So I kind of knew what to write about. And I fell in love with sports writing, man. And that was just the beginning of my journey there. And it was just, the next few years I was just having this conversation earlier today. The next few years I went from being a sports writer to a sports editor to the editor-in-chief of the Pan American, to then being what we called the senior reporter, where I just kind of had the freedom to write about whatever I wanted. And man, those were some of the best years. Those were some of the best years.
That is an awesome story
that I had. But I mean, I had classes with Matt. I would see Matt in class. I would go interview him. And
Eladio, you never saw Matt in class. You don't have to lie.
Dude, my mom listens to this show, man.
I saw him in class one time. No, but that's when the whole Delray Brooks thing happened. So I was able to cover that, and I was able to work with my advisor, who at the time, Matt, do you remember a professor named Bob Rollins?
I do. Yeah, I remember.
Bob Rollins was a newspaper guy, and he actually passed away like the first year that I was there. Great professor of journalism. And the one thing he taught me was like, hey man, if you want to get into this, you got to check your ego at the door. Because I'm gonna rip your articles apart, but I'm doing it for a reason. And then he wasn't a sports guy, but he was a newspaper man. So man, that guy, and then the advisor after that guy named Arturo Longoria. Those guys came in, professors, and really kind of showed me the ropes and really kind of coached me up in the industry and just what we did there. So,
and just to be clear, I was in the communications department with you, so we did have class together, and I did show up at class. So I just want to put that on record. Yeah,
you were on the roster. You were on the class roster.
He showed up a couple of times. No, he was there. But so with that whole Delray Brooks thing, the advisors were able to coach me up how to cover it. I remember when Coach Hoffman got there, and I covered the press conference. So it was a great experience, But it really, that experience there allowed me to fall in love with journalism and sports writing and storytelling. It turned out that I really had a passion for storytelling, and that's what I did in my later years in the newspaper.
Wow. That's awesome, Eladio. That's awesome. So after that, those Pan American days, and of course, we want to hear more stories about Pan Am. So if you can reach into that bank a little bit with some of the games you covered or some of the players, man, that would be awesome if you can, kind of share those stories with us. But, where did you kind of go, after that? Like, where did journalism take you? Did you go, did you do something totally different? Did you continue journalism, after those days at Pan Am?
No, I spent then 12 years, almost 12 years at the Valley Morning Star in Harlingen as a sports writer.
That's right.
I covered high school sports. We were talking about Bianca Torrey. I covered a bunch of high school athletes from Brownsville to the Upper Valley. Of course, everybody covers high school football, but I covered the one beat that I had consistent throughout my time at the Valley Morning Star was boys basketball. So
you cover Brian Molina then, right?
When he was coaching, yeah.
Yeah, when he was coaching, yeah.
Yeah, he was at Westaco, and then he came over to South, and so, but yeah, I covered him all those years. all those great teams, from Brownsville Porter and all those teams that they had down there, and uh, Los Fresnos had some good teams. Rio Hondo had some good teams with Joe Guzman. I don't know if you guys remember Joe Guzman.
Absolutely.
Uh,
A coach at Pace.
yeah, yeah,
For me.
yeah. That's right. That's right. I
Yep.
believe he's in Progresso now. Someone told me that. I think
Yeah.
he's coaching. But up and down the valley, of course, you had the Capello teams and Ed Chelsea, and I was
Roy
able to,
Swift.
the Edinburgh teams,
Yeah.
and so I was able to cover a lot of athletes here in the valley that went on. There was a great Westico team. I I don't know if Brian was still on the team or was still coaching, but they had a they had a great run of players. I remember a kid named Uriel Segura who was from Mexico. I don't know if you guys remember him.
Oh man,
Game.
Yeah.
play. Yeah, he could
Yeah.
play.
He could
Point
play.
guard. He could play, man. He
Yeah,
could
they
play.
had that. They had that big kid Kike.
Kiko, Francisco
yeah,
Rodriguez, I think.
yeah. That was a
And so
Roy Swift team. They coached
that was a
Roy
Roy
Swift,
Swift
who
team, yeah.
who played at Pan Am, coached
Yep.
there
So
at the time.
so it's I got to cover Coach Mo when he was coaching San Benito. I think he was in San Benito when I started at the newspaper. So, and of course, track and field and a bunch of stuff. So I was able to continue that at the Valley Morning Star. And like I said, I went from loving the reporting to loving the storytelling, because I had this belief that everybody had a story to tell. Everybody had a story.
Everybody does. Yeah.
Everybody has a story, right? And so my goal at games wasn't just to report the score. Uh, there was a little bit more to the game. There was always a little bit more. So I was always looking for that human interest side of a game. Sometimes the game was just a game, right? But sometimes there was a little bit more to the game, and if that, but you get there by developing beats, by developing relationships, and I
Yeah.
think that's what I value more about my time at the newspaper was I still keep in touch with a lot of coaches, and now in my position, I'm on the school board there in Harlingen. I continue to create those relationships. A lot of those relationships are the ones that got me elected, right? So it's been quite a journey for me, man. And it all started right there at Pan Am, man.
Let's talk about how you expand your network. Let's tell the story about how you and G met.
Well, it's a funny story because that's probably how I met a lot of people. You know, I don't remember the year. I was a sports writer, but there was a great outdoor bar in Harlingen called Baloo's,
Yep.
and G, I don't know if you recognize me as the Valley Morning Star sports writer or what, but we just started talking about basketball.
Yeah.
And I think you had some company with you.
Yeah, I did have some company, and he didn't attend UTPA, so I don't think we can have him on the show, but he was very actually we can have him on the show.
We can, because he was a huge sponsor. Yeah, he was a sponsor for the programs.
UTPA basketball, Mr. Rini Cardenas, the legendary coach and legendary people and friend that you could ever have, man. He's an awesome individual. But yeah, we met. That's the first time that I met Eladio. It's at Baloo's, and we had and he was hanging out with Rini. So when I went over, Rini said, "Hey, man, in very nice words, do you know this guy?" It's exactly, I'm quoting him. And said, "Yeah, man, looks familiar, and all this." So we started talking ball then, and dude, I think Eladio, it's been a while, man. I think that was the first time we met, and we just kind of, how you kind of know. You think you have conversations with people and you know them because you follow them on social media. So I've followed Eladio's career on social media. It's crazy.
Or in the paper, because when Eladio started, there was no social media. Now, obviously, we're all friends on social media, but I get what you're saying. Like, I've been following your work and your writing since '98, man, when we first met. I remember. And I shared this with you earlier. Like, I remember you cutting your teeth, and trying to just, figure it out. And you did such a great job, and you submitted so many great pieces, and the network that you built is by far, is amazing. And I've always admired you and how you kind of maneuvered through that world.
Well, thank you for that, Matt. I remember I covered a game one time, a basketball game, and Matt, you must have gone like over from the free throw line.
Yeah.
I can
Because
edit this.
Please keep that.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember the story came out. It was one of those games where, because games were usually on the weekend, so the story wouldn't come out till a few days later because we were in the daily, obviously. But there was a game like on Tuesday, so the story was able to come out right away on Thursday, and I think that was the day that Matt actually came to class. He goes, "Hey man, thanks for not putting on there that I missed 5 free throws, whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm just there to write about the good stuff, you know." But
He would do that, Eladio. He would do that, man, and that's why he loves you to this day. He remembers that gesture, that kind gesture.
Honestly,
But
I probably would have said something like that, but I don't remember. I mean, I remember conversations that you and I've had in the past,
yeah,
right? Like I remember sitting in class and talking to you and talking to you after practice or after games, like of course, but that particular, no, I don't remember that. That's amazing that you remember that. Now I
no,
probably would have said something like that. So
you know why I remember it, Matt? I remember it because it was actually kind of a learning moment for me, you know, and I kind of carried that with me as I went uh, as I went on in my career as a journalist. I kind of made I I did it, you know, not uh, I guess you would say on purpose, but moving forward from that day, I made kind of a decision like, look, I'm here to cover sports. I'm here to cover the news. Sometimes it's bad news. You write about the bad news. I've had to cover I've had to write stories about coaches getting arrested, and sometimes you can't sugarcoat anything, right? And so, but that's not the intent. The intent for me, the intent was never to make someone look bad or someone, you know, especially high school kids, right? I
mhm.
mean, you put a recorder, they don't know. Sometimes they'll say things, and technically everything's on the record, but I'm not here to burn them. You know, I'm not here. You know, a coach can get emotional after a game, and trust me, I've had plenty of interviews where I'll give a coach a second or third chance to say something that I use. Sometimes I've used their quotes because that's all they give me. It's like, okay, you're
Yeah.
gonna blame the refs. All right. You lost by 60, bro. And so, you know, but that's all they gave me. But
Yeah.
that's never my intent. That was never my intent. And I think that's why I remember that, Matt, because it's like, all right, yeah, cool. It's like I didn't do it on purpose. I was just focusing because I think we won anyway. And I'm like, I'm focusing on the win and this and this.
Yeah, because we
But
had very few wins, so that was a that was a great decision.
Eladio, I need you to give us more stories where Matt went 0 for whatever. I'm kidding. But you know, you're stamped as that, as a storyteller, and I'm curious if you have more, you know, stories from those Pan Am days, you know, and you know, maybe a game that you covered that you remember was like, you know, I know the Oral Roberts game was awesome. Maybe players that stuck out in your mind that made, you know, quite an impression on you. You know, what do you recall any other stories that we would love to hear?
yeah, absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna give you another basketball story, but there was more than basketball. But
Yeah.
uh, I remember interviewing Lalo on his last game, right? The last home game he played, and it was a huge production, right? And
Of
Lalo and I
course,
actually, Lalo and I graduated in 1995. Lalo graduated Edinburgh. I graduated Harlingen High School. What year did you guys graduate high school?
I
Not,
graduated in '96, but I
I
grew up in
was
96,
Austin. Yeah.
yeah, I was 95, Eladio, out of St. Joe.
95 also.
Yep. Yep.
And so I remember it was Lalo's last game, and that I covered the game, but I didn't write about the game. I wrote about Lalo's last game. And so I remember, and I want to say that might be when I made a subconscious decision to say like it's not always about the final score. because I don't even remember if we won or lost that game. It's not always about the final score, you know. Like I later would always tell people when I would speak to, I've gone back to Pan Am to speak to students or at high schools. It's
I
like
believe we
if
did
people,
win. I think we did. I think he won his last home game at home. Yeah.
it might have been because
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of those. I remember a lot of celebrating, but I tell people if all they want to know is the score, they'll just look at the box score and get the score. You know, sometimes people want to read more, and I remember that moment because on a personal level, I remember interviewing Lalo, and I remember asking him. It was a win. It was a win, obviously, but because I remember asking him, what did this, you know, like I said, I was cutting my teeth in the business, and you know, I was asked the same questions. What does this mean? Win for the team? And so I remember I asked Lalo, what does this win? Excuse me, what does this win mean for the team? Like, oh, okay. And I said, what does this win mean for Lalo Rios? You know, and I remember he went on and talked, and I just remember that a big old smile on his face where it was almost tears. Where I think that the question might have kind of made everything real for him at that moment. Like, shit, this is it. This is my last home game. Because I think there might have still been some road games, but that was the last time he was going to play basketball in front of his home crowd. And you know, I don't remember what he said, but I remember the moment, and that was kind of cool for me too because I was just starting off, and I remember thinking like, man, this guy already, you know, this guy went through his time here. I'm barely starting.
Yeah.
I was like a 22 or 23-year-old freshman, but I'm like, I'm just starting here, and it's you know that always sticks in my mind. I covered a lot of baseball games at Jody Ramsey. And
Coach
I
O.
remember,
Shout out to Coach
yeah,
O, man. Yeah.
yeah. And I remember, and Reggie Treadaway
Mm-hmm.
Right.
when he was there, I covered Reggie Treadaway more, and I took a racquetball class and a softball class with him, and those were fun. Those were fun. And I remember when we were gonna move from moving out of Jody Ramsey because they wanted to expand the campus and they were going to build the new stadium. I started writing. I had already been with the newspaper a few years, and so I'm like, all right, I'm going to be a journalist, you know. And I started writing these like skating columns of how you know we need to pick tradition over expansion. Basically, it's like don't touch Jody Ramsey, and of course, all to you know, nobody was listening, but like they were going to do what they were going to do. But I remember really enjoying, as much as I like going to basketball games, I loved going to Jody Ramsey. Like there was something about walking from my apartment at the Palms through campus and going to the baseball stadium that was on campus and sitting there with my scorecard and just kind of uh, watching the games. And you know, Omar Ortiz was playing at the time, the first year, and I remember when he got drafted by the Padres, reaching out to him and just kind of like it was a big story. It was a big deal for Pan Am to have a guy go out in the first round of the Major League Baseball draft. So uh, there was a time when, man, and I wish I remembered the names. I know Gabe De La Garza was one of them. I don't know if y'all remember Gabe. He was a baseball player. There was a guy named Dustin Hess. I don't know if you guys no Andy Ness. I don't know if you guys remember a guy named Andy Ness. He was a catcher, and Dustin Haas.
I remember him.
And,
Yeah.
and I want to say Leo Salinas. And if I have those four names right, you know, I'm gonna be proud of myself. But I guess we can figure it out. They hit back to back to back to back solo home runs during a game. Yeah,
That doesn't happen, man.
it doesn't happen often. I remember there. I don't even know who were playing. Jerry the Whistler was going crazy, but it was back to back to back to back home runs. They just went out there pop 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 pop, and I remember thinking, man, this is some cool shit. And
I feel bad for that pitcher, man. That pitcher got rocked.
Pitcher, we need that pitcher.
He might have got rocked on like 4 straight pitches, but you know, there was a lot of great moments on that campus I remember I told Coach Treadaway one time, I said, hey, Coach, they were going to play UT. Omar was still on the team, Omar Ortiz. No, he wasn't. It was a year after he graduated. And I was talking to Coach Treadaway after racquetball class one morning. And I said, hey, can I come with you guys to Austin? They're going to play UT so I can cover the game. And he said, yeah, but you're going to have to pay your meals. You're going to, like, you can hop on the bus, but we can't pay for anything. I said, are you going to spend the night? He goes, no, we're going up and coming back. I go, all right. He goes, all right, we'll be at Jody Ramsey by 7 a.m. or whatever. So I was there. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a car when I was at Pan Am. So I walked over and had my backpack and my laptop and got on the bus with him, man. And it was kind of cool just driving up with the team. Got there, got to Dish Fox Stadium there at UT. They had that old turf that felt like a bed. You know what that turf I'm talking about? Sam Stadium used to have it back in the day. So I covered the game. I remember I was in the press box and Davey Hinojosa walks in and he looked at me. He goes, what are you doing here? I said, I'm covering the game. He goes, you drove up for this? I go, no, I came on the bus with the guys. He goes, cool, man.
Inside scoop.
I want to say that I earned a little bit of respect from Dave Hinojosa that day. He's like, all right, this guy's not just some punk student trying to, trying to cover games. Like he actually, and I would actually follow Dave around when he was at the monitor and kind of try to shadow him without being too annoying. On it. And Siri's trying to spy on me. So I would,
edit her out. That's fine.
And like I was gonna say, I want to say that I might have, because he kind of gave me a look like, all right, this guy's serious about this, right?
Yeah.
Like he's up here, and that was a cool experience. And so then when Jody Ramsey finally closed, I was genuinely upset. I mean, there was nothing that was gonna stop him, but I was genuinely upset because I'm like, man, this is Jody Ramsey Stadium, right? It's our stadium here on campus.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the campus is beautiful now. I mean, it's a gorgeous campus. I was just there last week. I went to go buy a cap.
Yeah, they've made unbelievable changes, and shout out to Chase and the president and what they're doing to the school. But I remember coming out of the locker room right there where the training room was.
Yeah. And
you could walk right across that little faculty parking lot right there and just hang out right there in right field on the third base, the first base line, and just kind of hang over the fence and watch the baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
It was an amazing experience,
It was.
Yeah.
And there was just like this closeness, and I don't know if that's the way it was, Matt and G, like between the basketball players, baseball players, and volleyball, but at least that's how I perceived it. Like, you guys were all Bronx student athletes together, and I felt like there was some kind of closeness.
It was, and where we hung out a lot was the training room, and because the seasons overlapped a little bit, like volleyball would overlap with the start of basketball, preseason, and then basketball would kind of overlap into the beginning of baseball, so basketball kind of got, and obviously women's basketball, so we saw the women's team the most, right? But yeah, you're exactly right. We shared training tables, we shared hot tubs, it was kind of like we would have conversations, and you would hear Omar talk about a game he had the next day or the following day or whatever. It was a great time. It was a phenomenal time.
What's pretty cool about that is not only did were we talking about the games or performances and all that, but we'd get back to our usual grind on a Monday, and we're chopping it up there at the training room with Jim Lancaster. Shout out to Jim Lancaster with a great training room experience. But he would talk to us about, so what'd you all do this weekend? So what kind of damage did you do to your bodies? What kind of substance did you put in your body? And it's like, man, he'd kind of overhear all the weekend stories, which if we did just a podcast with Jim, him recalling weekend stories with the baseball, volleyball, and basketball team, man,
that's what we're planning to do. We talked about it. We shared that with you, Eladio. We'll make that announcement soon enough, but
And
Yeah,
this
we're
might this
planning
this
on
might
doing
be
that.
this might be for the other extended version of the podcast. But
That's
man, I used to party with the golfers. Those
you know, I heard
those
about that. I heard the golfers could bring it, man.
they
Like,
They were in full
someone had a
swing.
house. Someone had a house out there off of Freddie Gonzalez, and I remember I would end up out there sometimes on weekends, and I mean they would get crazy, man. They would get
El-
crazy.
Eladio, what's crazy is I remember one or two of those golfers coming into the training room sometimes. They didn't really know where the training room was, you know, they didn't
Yeah.
anything like that. But I remember we would see each other and I can't remember his name. He was a blonde guy, blue eyes, short.
Johnny Love.
Who was it?
John Amore. Was it Johnny Love? Shout out
It
to
was Johnny-
Love.
Johnny-
Oh my God, that guy's amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
Johnny Love.
And he would always kind of invite us to a party, and we're
Yep.
like, man, I don't know if we can hang with these guys.
You know, I showed up at there was one, I can't remember his name, man. For some reason, I remember he was like from the Dallas area, from Fort Worth or something. But they invited me. They're like, "Hey, we're going to this party, and we're having this party. Come over." I'm like, "All right." So I remember he walks me over to the ice chest. He goes, "Here," and I remember it was all like the good stuff, like premium, like like Budweiser, but like the good. He goes, "Here's what you do." He goes, "You put all the cheap shit in the bottom, and the good stuff in the top, and then put some ice in it. By the time we get to the bottom, nobody cares." I'm like, "All right, man." I'm like, "Well, these guys know what they're doing. These guys know what they're doing."
That is legendary, man.
Yeah. And
Wow.
so it's it's but there was a lot. I mean, those were the fun times of being at Pan Am, but like I said, really, kind of uh being a sports writer, I feel like that's been my identity for my whole life. Because even now, I decided to run for school board in 2016 here in Harlingen, and I've been serving since. But even now, like I'll still get people at stores or whatever, like, hey, where do I know you from? And I never say I'm on the school board in Harlingen or I
Yeah.
work for AEP Texas. I always say I used to work for the Valley Morning Star. I mean, shoot, that was 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's where I remember you from, the sports writer. I go, yeah.
And now,
And-
tell us what you're doing now, because I mean we're kind of wrapping it up. But what are you doing now? What have you done creatively? You took your sports writing and tell us what you're doing now. What have you transitioned into?
I'm not what us and what anybody in the newspaper industry would call the dark side. I've gone into public relations. So I work for a power company, a light company, AEP Texas. We're a poles and wires company, but we basically just provide the infrastructure for the retail companies. But I'm the spokesperson. So
You're still creating stories then.
I'm still creating stories internally here with the company, but I still walk around with a camera, and that's always going to be part of me. But I'm the spokesperson. I'm the one in front of the camera whenever we have outages and we have to make statements to the media. But having worked in the media for so many years, I'm not saying it comes easy to me, but I'm in my element, working with media and getting interviewed, having a camera in front of me. But it all started there, and I really, as we get older, I think we look back on you talk about formative years, you think of when you're like in middle school or stuff. But shit, man, you talk about college for anybody, especially those of us that are like in our late 40s, as we move into 50, which by the way, I don't feel like I'm getting close to being in my 50s. But you think back to those years and all those experiences, people you met. We didn't even talk about like the Brian Merriweathers and the Myrie Chapmans. I remember covering those guys. And I remember, those guys kind of making national headlines too, was, with whatever they were, I think it was their scoring average or their 3 points, or I don't know. And I remember me thinking like, man, I'm here with this guy who's, making, like
News.
scoring at a national, and I'm covering them, and I can just walk over, and like those years at Pan Am really, and that's why I had this closeness. And now with UTRGV, having a football program, a lot of people, especially folks on this side of the valley, I don't know, how you perceive it. Like some
Yeah.
people say, like, well, that's Edinburgh's football team, and
Mhm.
I invited Coach Bush and Chase to Harlingen at the chamber a few weeks ago to have a meet and greet with Coach Bush because I want this area to kind of get excited. This
That's right.
area, Browns,
We saw
the whole
that.
valley.
Yeah.
And I told Chase, I said, look, man, I want us to get excited, but it's also going to be you guys. You guys have to make sure that you let people know, like, this is the Valley's team, this is the Valley school, and
Yep.
there's just now with that, and as I get older, I think back, like, man, those were some really good years for me, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way, because I mean, it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns, right? There was
Yeah.
some tough times there,
No, there
especially
were some tough times, but
there was
you know
some tough
what?
times.
I do feel the same way because we've shared this numerous times, and on air and off air is my friendships, my relationships, with you, people like you, and obviously G, and old teammates, and just everybody that we've invited on the show and that we're going to invite on the show. It's one of those things where it was a great time to be alive, and that moment in time has it's made us who we all are,
Yeah.
and so
Definitely. Definitely.
I can't say enough about it.
We definitely met the
I,
people meet, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Exactly.
I made some lifelong friends working at the newspaper, at the Pan American, in the newsroom, and I remember one, and I was there in that newsroom for 3 or 4 years, and it seemed like every year there was a new staff, but the first year I was there with those folks, probably 3 or 4 other reporters that were there. One of them also pursued journalism. He worked at the Austin American Statesman for a long time. My buddy Mike Liscano, and he was a great reporter up in Austin for years. But I remember one year I covered a baseball game, on my birthday. My birthday is February 24th. I was out there on a Thursday because I was going to go home for the weekend to celebrate my birthday. But I was out there on a Thursday covering the game, and that group, and I always remember this, that group that I worked with, none of them liked sports. They didn't know what why I love sports so much, but they knew it was my birthday, so they showed up with cake at the stadium. Right? They showed up with cake, and I'm like, oh man, thanks, man, appreciate it. It was a touching moment because I'm like, man, these guys showed up with cake. I opened the cake, and whoever bought the cake bought an ice cream cake, and that thing melted, made a mess in the stadium. I'm like, there was a thought that counts. But
It was
like
a
I
thought
said,
that counts.
but like I said, that's why that stadium. And I know we're getting short on time, but
Yeah.
right before, or in the days leading up to when they were gonna finally close down Jody Ramsey and tear it down, uh, I don't even think I was a student there anymore. I drove over there, and I snuck onto the field, and I grabbed some dirt, and I put it in a solo cup. I grabbed some dirt from the
Wow.
home plate area. I just scooped it up. That was back in like 2002, 2003. I held on to that dirt for almost 20, no, about 15 years. And a few years ago, uh, I still had it in my house. And a few years ago, my mom's all like, yeah, I threw away some dirt down.
Oh no.
Like, no way, man. I'm like, that was my dirt from Jody Ramsey. And I had it in my old room. I'm like, I'm gonna hold this. I need to do something with it, but I just never took it anywhere. I'm like, I'm gonna put it in like a jar and just put it away and
So
commemorate.
Eladio held on to dirt for 15 years, but that's man. You know what's even
You
better
know?
is that I get to hold on to you as a friend, Eladio, and I will forever cherish those memories and our time, and I will make sure that your mom doesn't throw
Throw you
our
away. Throw
friendship
me
away.
away.
Yeah.
Eladio, let's play a little 3-question speed round real quick.
There you go.
Real
Let's
quick.
go.
Yeah. All right, you ready? Okay, but it's just one answer. It's got to be quick. Okay, don't think too much
Okay.
about it. And you can't say Matt Palmquist on any
All
of
right.
these. Right. Favorite player that you ever covered at UT Pan American? Can
What
be
if
any,
it is me?
but it can't be.
Okay.
Okay, I would have said Matt Palmquist, but I think, man, you see this Rolodex just going.
Yeah.
I want to say it was Omar Ortiz
Okay.
Ooh,
after
good one.
Great.
Matt Palmquist.
Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate that. All right.
Awesome.
Next question.
Next question. Favorite place to eat while you attended UTPA? We always go to the food thing.
Yeah, we
always-
always do. We always do.
And I thought about this because I think you asked Coach Mo the same thing. Remember that pizza? Remember that pizzeria across on University, Armando's?
Yes.
Ooh, wow. Yeah.
There's a pizza place called Armando's over there. I
Yes.
think it's behind where Pizza Hut. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember we would order pizza from there all the time.
Yeah, I remember that place.
And maybe looking for a sponsorship. Are they still there? Probably
I don't
not.
know. I don't know.
Heck.
Okay.
We gotta check, man.
Last one, G.
Last one, man. If Eladio had a superpower, which one would it be?
Oh.
Time travel. Time
Would you
travel.
go back in time to cover your favorite player?
I would
Matt
go back in time to watch Matt Palmquist play basketball. No, I think
Dude, I
time
wouldn't
travel,
even do that.
I time travel because I love talking. I love you know, you
Yeah.
can't live in the past, but man, when we sit down and talk about times that have passed, and like I said, especially as we get older, you really learn to appreciate it more. And there's been times when I'm like, I'd like to go back and not relive it,
Just
but
see it.
just watch it.
Yep.
Watch it. You know.
Wow.
Yeah, there's
Watch
some
me-
things. There's some things I would
Awesome.
love to go back and see G do again. Like,
Yeah, that's for another. That's for the subscription podcast.
Trust me, there's some things I'd like to go back and redo.
yeah,
But you know, all that stuff made us who we are. But I would like to time travel and go back and
Awesome.
and
well,
and
Eladio,
experience.
thank you so much for the time. I can't
Yeah.
say enough how this made me feel that you said that you would be on the show, and G said that, hey, we got Eladio, and just made me feel really good. And thank you so much for blessing us with the time. And we wish
Yep.
you all the best in all your endeavors and all the stories you create for PR, you know, especially
Thank you,
during the
sir.
winter and during hurricane season.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, man.
So
Yeah,
you know.
and I appreciate you guys thinking of me and having me on. And this was a lot of, and I'm glad you guys are doing this, man, because there's something here that I hope it just keeps growing, and you guys
Awesome.
keep kicking butt, man.
no,
Thank you.
we appreciate that.
Thank you for taking us back in time, man.
Absolutely, man. That's the time machine right there.
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you soon. Take care.
All right.
All right, man.